All right, before we start, I want to say that as this is being recorded, I am in the middle of reviewing Minority Report, and part 3 has been somewhat delayed. Not terribly, but probably not for another couple of days, for two reasons. First, work is working me until I'm dead. I haven't had a day off in some time. And number two, and most importantly, I'm sick.
Yeah.
So those two things combined, but I did want to get something up, and so I thought it would be nice for Stan and I to go and see The Princess and the Frog, because apparently word has gotten around that I didn't like The Lion King.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How did anybody get that
I
impression?
have no idea. But a lot of people wanted to know how I felt about this one. Before I say anything, I want to say first, regardless of whether or not I liked this movie, how nice was it to see something animated
I was
from
thrilled.
Disney?
I was thrilled. I was so grateful to them. What's happened to hand-drawn animation? Why do we not?
It's gone
why
in America.
do we not see this anymore?
Because
in
everybody,
America,
because everybody thinks that computer animation. First of all, it's more popular right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's cheaper.
I don't know if it's cheaper.
It is.
I've
It's
talked
a lot cheaper.
Some people say that it actually ends up being very expensive because they have to use the equipment and whatnot. But anyway,
I don't know. I think it's a question of money. Just a question of demand.
well, it looks more novel.
Speaking of computer animation, I mean, Pixar has dominated where Disney used to dominate now for years.
Well, and in story.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the animation they have Pixar is the best in computer animation right now. But that's just an added bonus in the same way that Disney's animation style was just an added bonus to the stories that they used to tell. And people say from The Lion King on, I'm going to say from Aladdin on, the quality in Disney dipped, and they are not wrong. No. Because it's not necessary. I mean, some of them were bad, like The Lion King, and some of them were just trite, like Tarzan. Like Tarzan may as well be anything.
Well, Tarzan was really just a bunch of Disney movies smashed together. I mean,
and there was nothing special about it. Nothing special about Hercules.
Right.
Nothing special about Mulan.
Right. I'll just say about Lion King, the scope and the magnitude of the movie was at least on an epic scale. It was at least attempting to be something special. You could tell it was trying to be in a class.
Well,
and the only place that it failed was in the story.
Well, that is what has been missing in Disney for years. Is
Scope?
I have trying to do something special,
right?
Because everything else has just been movies. They're like, we have to have our big movie,
and we have to have our little sidekick character that people go and buy toys of, and
it got to the point where they stopped being charming. And they started trying to be, I hate this term, hip.
Right.
Like their movies were trying to be popular rather than trying to be good.
Yeah.
And, this movie, did they do something special with this movie? Kind of.
Yeah, I think that I'm right on the line. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. This was something special.
It was, but I don't know. Yeah, I think it was, but I don't know if that's in comparison to what they used to be doing. If this had come right after Aladdin, I don't know how I would have felt about this.
No, I'll tell you what. Pocahontas came right after
The Lion King.
Well, it was sort of in the same breath, almost.
Yes,
because they were both made at the same time. So if Pocahontas was a follow-up to The Lion King, it wasn't very special. It wasn't very good.
But I'm just saying, how does
I would have said if this had that's a good way. That's a good test of this thing independently. If this had come right after Aladdin, I would say it wasn't as good, but it was still special.
Good.
I wouldn't have said what I said about Pocahontas, which is this was just nothing.
Yeah. Let's start from the beginning, because I didn't have very high hopes for this in the beginning.
Yeah.
It gets off to a very weird start.
It does. Well, before you even go into that, did you like it?
Yes, I did.
I liked it,
yes,
too.
I did.
So,
my test for any children's film is, would I, because I have to judge them now as an adult.
Right.
Did this make me feel like a kid again? Mm-hmm. Which it did.
Did for me, too.
And would I see this again? Yes, I would.
I would. Mm-hmm.
I think I would enjoy it, actually, a second time more than I did the first, because, like I said, it gets off to a weird kind of a start.
Yeah.
Everything is just a little bit disjointed, and you get a lot of introductions very fast.
Very fast,
yeah. And you start out with the motivations that are being given to the main female protagonist and her friend who I love.
Me too. Me too.
But I loved both of them.
Yeah.
But it got off to a very quiet start, and I like that because if you remember when Hercules opens up, it's just the loudest, most obnoxious thing. I mean, who thought that kids were gonna want to watch something where every single song is sorry. I'm sorry.
It's true.
Yeah, no,
it's
it is.
True.
But
in fact, I was gonna.
This gets off to such a nice start. I don't know if it was particularly glued together very well.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that it wasn't glued together very well. I would say of all the things to say about it, it needed more exposition, and it needed deeper exposition, especially about the prince, because he gets off the boat and he just starts dancing around.
I didn't know what his motivations were.
I didn't know what his motivations were. I didn't know why he was there. I didn't know why he visited New Orleans.
I kind of knew why he was there, but I thought maybe they were going for something like he doesn't want to be a prince, he wants to be a commoner, and that's why he's dancing in the street with the people. I didn't know he was supposed to be a philanderer until the Voodoo Man song.
I didn't know he was a philanderer. Well, and I didn't know he was a philanderer until even after that, but I didn't know that he was broke and looking for a rich wife until the Voodoo Man explained it in the song, and that was a good third of the way, or not a third of the way, but it was a good half hour into the movie.
Well, that was his introductory scene, and we don't learn anything about him.
And the thing is, we don't know much about him until way later in the movie.
Yeah, he's kind of comic relief at first, and then after a while, we kind of get to say, "Oh, okay, this is what he wants."
Tiana, my problem with her in the beginning, they didn't give her any adversity to triumph over, other than the fact that she had to work a lot.
Have you ever worked a lot?
Yes,
I thought that was enough adversity.
No. What I mean is, for example, Jasmine wants to explore,
be independent.
Right. She wants to have a restaurant, and she's working for it, and it's working more or less.
Let me just say, after
well, just one more thing about that. The creditors that say, okay, you had enough for the down payment, but not enough to pay for the thing, that comes so quickly.
It does.
That should have been pressing on her. Nothing was weighing on her.
Well, that's what I mean is that, things are in the beginning, but then she gets a restaurant, and that surprised me. I'm like,
me too.
Okay, I thought this was going to be the thing that she was striving for through the whole film.
Yeah.
She gets it. Then she loses it.
And then somebody's going to pull the rug out from under her instantly.
Yeah. I didn't mind it. It just could have been set up a little bit better.
It was too...
But they did establish her motivations very well in the beginning.
Yeah,
and I knew immediately what they were. I knew immediately who she was. Mm-hmm. It took me a while to really get the Prince character.
Me too. He wasn't handled very well
in the beginning. No. So let's jump to the middle.
Well, I'll just say they needed to tighten up the first act.
Yes, they did.
Second act, they needed to completely reimagine the whole second act.
I don't know if they needed to reimagine, because keep in mind, I mean, the second act is comprised of these people having to go from one place to another, and they need to have things for them to do along the way. Otherwise, they're just going to get there and going to go from Act 1 to Act 3.
But the things they should have done to get there should have had something to do with establishing who they were.
It did.
At some parts, the part where the three frog hunters, I guess, come up, that seemed to be so out of the blue. It was a funny scene, I'll tell you. It was very funny, but it seemed to come totally out of the blue, and it had nothing to do with who they were or what they wanted. Really.
No, it didn't have anything to do with what they wanted, but it did give them an obstacle to overcome together.
But a physical obstacle to overcome. It gave them an obstacle to overcome together, but they weren't getting to know each other while they were doing it.
I kind of thought that they did.
I didn't.
Okay. Well, let's continue with this in part 2. So I think what you have to understand is, the first act of the film is really us just introducing everything, everyone's motivation, not necessarily their characters as much as I would have liked, but particularly the Shadow Man. His character is being introduced, but we don't get his motivation until a lot later. I was kind of sitting there wondering what he wanted until, later in the film where he says...
I kind of had the sense that this was a charlatan who his whole career was being a charlatan, and now he found some rich guy that he could... this was going to be his big con, so to speak.
Love that villain.
So did I.
I mean,
I think I would put him up there with Jafar.
With some of the best villains, as opposed to the forgettable ones. Like, what was the villain in Mulan? I can't even remember.
Oh, it was
something.
Whatever. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. This guy was memorable.
He was.
So you get everything set up in the first act, which, it was kind of a mess.
To me, it felt... I don't think it was a mess. My problem with it was it felt more like setup than story.
It was all set up. And I was like you. I sat there wondering where they were going with this.
I said to myself, in the first 40 minutes of the movie, I did say to myself, when is this going to start?
I didn't necessarily say that, but I did say where are they going with all of this? And then you've got the second act where they're basically just going from one place to another and having a few adventures along the way.
Yeah.
It really isn't until that third act that this really started coming together, because all those pieces that I felt were just kind of thrown in there in the first act
and hanging there in the second act,
they come together so much in the third act.
They really do.
That I think if I saw this again, knowing what I know now, knowing where everyone is, I would like it more a second time. Because that third act, as soon as they meet the other voodoo lady, that's when this really starts coming together as a
when
film.
I said to myself, okay, this is something that I'm really invested in.
So I think this is just one of those cases where it took a little while to get going, but once it got going, it really got going. I smiled and I laughed.
So did I.
There were some genuine laughs in this film.
There were some genuine laughs in it. There were some genuine, charming characters.
Yeah.
I thought that the Firefly and the alligator came totally out of nowhere, but once they were there, I really liked them. I was surprised at how much I really liked them.
Love Jim Cummings as the Firefly, by the way.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
For those of you who don't know, Jim Cummings is a voice actor who has done literally every single voice in the history of the universe.
Yeah,
we're big fans.
We are. He's been in pretty much every cartoon.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
There's like nothing he can't do.
No, there's
But
not.
anyway, they started this tradition in Disney films from Aladdin on. To where they said to themselves, every single one of our movies has to have the annoying sidekick. It wasn't annoying in Aladdin, because it was the first time they really tried to do like that three-dimensional Robin Williams type of character.
Right.
But every movie since had to have that. This didn't have a single character that irritated me.
Me neither.
I liked all of them.
Me too.
I wish that I cared a little more at first, because I liked them, but I didn't care as much as I felt that I should have.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't take me long to care about every character in The Little Mermaid, or The Beauty and the Beast, or Aladdin. This, you really had to prime the pump with you a little bit.
It was the little movie that could, I think. It kept trying and trying and trying, and eventually it got there.
And eventually you get some real sweetness, like the bug who was in love with, I won't say who or what.
Right.
But man, oh man, that stole my heart.
It got me too, and that Firefly, I didn't think I was going to like him at first.
Me either.
And he grew on me.
Yeah.
Eventually I realized I was really invested in what he wanted.
And I was surprised by what they do with him in the end. I thought to I don't want to give anything away. I was like, are they
really going to do this?
And they do, and it works perfectly.
It does. Yeah.
It works great. I want to say also that what was the princess's name? Tiana. Love her friend. It's because I said Stan and I saw this in the theater alone, which I think is gay.
Wasn't it weird though? There was nobody.
Yeah, like it's like 2:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Nobody's there, so it was like a private friggin' screening, and so we kind of got to talk to one another. And I remember because they set up the two main characters in the beginning, and then we see them as adults. And her friend, I leaned over, I said, she's just like she was when she was a kid. She's just bigger.
She's just older.
And but she was like a nice Lena Lamont.
Yeah.
She was just like she wasn't mean and she wasn't petty. And she was just all over. She was just so excited.
Just so, what's the word I'm looking for? She was just sort of like hyper and bubbling up. She wasn't. I could see them doing a character like that was kind of a downer, where what they could have done with that character, which I'm glad they didn't, was something like, oh, I don't really relate to you because you're not rich like I am, or something. But they didn't do that. She was nice. She sort of picked you up when she was on screen.
Yeah. She was just a little too bit abrasive.
Energetic.
Yeah. But man, I like that character.
Me too.
Do we even want to talk about the issue of race in this movie? Because I don't know about you, but I didn't even think about it as it was going on.
Not one time.
And everybody's kind of making a big deal about how the fact that this is the first black, African-American princess that they've ever done in a Disney film. Well, you know what?
Huh. I never even thought that.
The only reason I thought it is because I heard it in the press, and I've been reading about it a lot, and people are making a big... But you know what? If that's true, then this is the way to do that, because I didn't even think about it.
Neither did I, and who cares?
Yeah,
that's
who cares? Exactly.
The whole point of the thing.
And this movie, for the first, African-American, Disney character, prominent character, had nothing to do with race.
No, nothing. And that's a good point.
Yeah.
Really good. Really good.
Very good.
The songs.
Forgettable.
They were lively but forgettable.
Some of them were lively. Some of them were just kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, if you think about, remember the same team that they had doing the songs in The Lion King, they hired again to do the songs in a movie called The Road to El Dorado. And those songs were just a mess of who cares.
Yeah.
These songs were enjoyable. I thought, but they weren't.
Yeah, I didn't hate them. I just I cannot remember a single one except for the Voodoo Ladies song.
The Voodoo Ladies song. Yeah. Well, there's no Whole New World or Can You Feel the Love Tonight in the movie. But they were lively, and I really enjoyed some of the sequences with the songs. I really liked the Firefly sequence.
I did too.
I really liked when the Voodoo Lady, when she starts singing. I really, with the flamingos and everything.
Yeah.
That was so colorful and bright, and I was really, really excited to watch it.
I liked the Shadow Man song. Because
so did I.
They don't give Disney villains, Disney character villains songs anymore.
No.
And I've missed that. Ever since Gaston's song, they take a whole segment out of the movie just for him to talk about how great he is.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
But this is, I loved that sequence. The animation in this movie is wonderful. It ties in perfectly with that New Orleans feel.
It really does. And let me say, from my own personal aesthetic opinion, I like the look of this film more than any other Disney film that I've seen.
Wow.
This is my favorite aesthetically looking film that Disney's ever done.
The thing is, they kept it simple. They didn't really feel the need to beat you over the head with the animation. They weren't trying. I didn't feel like, unlike Hercules,
right?
I didn't feel like they were just trying to impress me.
Or you know what? And you didn't feel that way in Lion King either. Just talking about the look of the film.
I can tell you what. I have seen The Lion King many, many times on mute. Because it still looks good.
Exactly, and in a different way, this is it's not as sharp as Lion King was. It's not as grand as the setting of the film is very almost dark colors, but you have greens and pinks and purples and just this sort of really interesting color scheme. I really loved it.
Yeah. I would say because I grew up with The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin. And The Lion King was out when I was a kid. I don't know. So, if those three, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast,
we'll call that the trilogy of classics.
If those were masterpieces, which I think they are, this is very good. Well, and it's a good step in the right direction.
I would say this is. Well, this is certainly better than what you got in the 80s, like with Oliver and Company, the Aristocats and that sort of thing. It's better than that. It's worse than the classics, but better than the average.
It's in leaps and bounds better than what they've been doing for the last decade.
Yeah.
This is not up to... man, I can't even believe I'm saying this, because Disney always set the standard. This is not up to Pixar standard in terms of the best work that they've done.
Yeah.
But...
story-wise, you mean.
Yeah. But it's really on its way. If they take this torch and they run with it in other films, I think that they could get back to number one.
Well, I'm really glad that this is as successful as it's been.
It is.
Because not only do I want them to make more movies like this, I want them to make more. I want there to be a demand for hand-drawn animation again.
Yeah, me too. Because it was so nice to see it. I love the medium. I always have.
Me too.
I've missed it when it was gone. Even some of the Disney films that I didn't particularly care for, like Pocahontas and Hercules, I liked looking at them.
Yeah.
So, in closing, the final verdict, I really like this movie.
I really liked it too.
And it's on my purchase list.
Me too. And I would definitely recommend... I think kids would really like this movie without it being just...
candy.
Yes. Well put. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
I think they will too. This is good for kids, and they should see it. If you have kids, take them to it. I think they'll have a really good time.
Yeah, me too.
All right. We will see you all later.